Hey there, wrestling fans, it is I, CM, the most glorious Jew that ever lived. Your wrestling rabbi and unchained Jewish champion. So just sit back and bask in my glory, bros. Because I'm here with the lovely Rias. And on this episode of CM Jews Wrestling Reviews, well, it is WrestleMania season, and we are in the Fastlane on the road to WrestleMania as we look at the night that Kofi Mania took over the entire WWE. As this is my review of WWE Fastlane 2019 on this episode of CM Jews Wrestling Reviews.
I have proved to everybody in the world that I am the best on this microphone, in that ring, even at commentary. Nobody can touch me.
Hey there, wrestling fans, and welcome to a brand new episode of CM Jews Wrestling Reviews. This is, of course, episode 105. And yes, it is WrestleMania season. Just a quick pro notes on all that before, of course, we get into all the fun for today's episode. One, I do know, yes, still episode 102 is not out. Again, because I have to be creative in a very stupid way. That will be coming out some point, sometime, as a lost episode. I'm going to try to be creative with it. Don't ask me why I have to do it this way, but I'm an idiot. It's the best answer I have for you. But just to give you a rundown for today's episode and for the upcoming episodes, as this is more than likely either dropping later tonight, after, the NXT TakeOver pay-per-view, or will be dropping Sunday, early Sunday, so you can watch it hopefully before WrestleMania and the such. Going towards the week, because I also have real life, sometime between Tuesday and Thursday, I'm going to have episode 106, which will cover NXT TakeOver New York. During the weekend, either a Saturday or Sunday, I will have my review of WrestleMania, which may be broken up into two parts, so that may be episode 107 and 108, or I may just do 107 part 1, 107 part 2 to make it easier. But my WrestleMania review will be out next weekend, and then that following week, I will have a review out of the G1 Supercard, Ring of Honor New Japan, which, by the way, if you're in New York and you are going to the G1 Supercard, I will be there. I will be sitting somewhere on the floor, so if you're in those floor seats, try to see if you can spot me. In fact, there's a great drinking game in which, if you can spot me on TV, you have to guzzle the entire bottle. Not that I'm saying you should play the drinking game, but I'm just saying those are the rules. But that being said, let's get into the review of Fastlane 2019 proper. First, I'm going to start off covering the pre-show, because one of the things about this pay-per-view that I find really interesting, you're going to hear me say this again when I get to final thoughts and everything, is this pay-per-view was really a throwback to sort of those Attitude Era pay-per-views, to where there were matches that were announced for the card, but then there were a lot of matches and a lot of things that happened that were thrown together during the card through backstage segments and everything. And because of that, in particular with the Kofi Kingston stuff and everything, there was this real sort of Attitude Era throwback of storytelling to the card, and I actually liked it. I liked the sort of throwback feel to it. So that really is why there's a sort of messed up thing with the card and everything. So, one thing we're going to be doing in this review is, like I said, I'm going to cover the pre-show stuff here first, but also, with every match that I'm going to talk about, I'm also going to talk about how the story isn't story, and this was really sort of more of a storytelling type of pay-per-view, where a lot of focus was put on storytelling, how that has worked towards the lead up and build up towards WrestleMania, because, you know, people's feelings on this WrestleMania are all over the place. So we're going to talk about all of that. Let's start off pre-show. You had, again, a lot of stuff going on with Kofi Kingston and the New Day and everything, and trying to remember, I think there was a cruiserweight match. I believe Akira Tozawa and Buddy Murphy. And that was a great match, a very fun match. And I think right after that, they, the whole Kofi Kingston has been turned to office. But by the way, your New Day, you have a tag match now with Rusev and Nakamura. Of course, this was, again, that whole not announced type of thing. And that led directly to, which was an okay match with New Day women. I honestly enjoyed the match, so I thought it was a good match. And I'll use this spot here to talk about basically what happened with Kofi, because again, it wasn't announced for the card. We don't really have a sort of match card to put in that place. But the pay-per-view would start, a couple matches go by, and then there was this thing to where Kofi had been waiting for it over an hour. And then finally New Day says, gotta go in, they go in. I thought a great story interaction with Vince McMahon, showing just, you know, how much of ass he is, to where he announces it's a triple, okay, you're in a triple threat now, because again, the whole thing was listen to Vince's words, and, you know, you knew it was coming. But it turns out he's not in a triple threat, he's in a handicap match against the Bar, and of course, just as it seems he's come back, and the New Day seemingly come to help. When they can't take it anymore, that's when they get jumped by several other teams like Nakamura and Rusev. And all of it, I actually thought worked in their favor for the story that they've been telling for sort of the past 2 months. Or past, I say, month and a half at least. If not 2 months. Really coming off of Elimination Chamber. And Kofi having to continue to fight to get a spot that he most definitely earned to be challenging for the WWE Championship. And I know some people have thought it's been a little overplayed. I've honestly enjoyed it. I think everything that they've done is perfect. From Kofi having to win that gauntlet match and winning, and to be screwed at the end by Bryan and Vince, to then, again, ultimately having to rely on his brothers in arms, Xavier and Big E, to win a tag team gauntlet match. We had so many good interactions, you know, in it, you know, in particular the Usos forfeiting. Of course, that leads to them being forced now to defend their titles at WrestleMania. Just so many good story elements, and I think it's so important to Kofi's story because his story is so tied with the New Day. And so all of these elements, I think, work wonderfully together. And so, while a bit jumbled, I thought that all the storyline aspect here, going even the sort of the handicap match that Kofi had to participate in on the pay-per-view, the tag match that was really good between Rusev and Nakamura versus the New Day was good. All of that worked in their favor for the story that they would go on to tell the past couple weeks leading up to WrestleMania. But with all that being said, let's get into the pay-per-view proper with the first match of the card. First match for the WWE Smackdown Tag Team Championships. The Usos versus Shane McMahon and The Miz. So with the first match, of course, we have the Usos defending their titles against Shane McMahon and The Miz. And I really enjoyed this match. I thought they built upon their not the Royal Rumble match, but their Elimination Chamber match. And, you know, like callbacks, like for instance, the false finish with the roll-up of Miz, where he kicked out of, where he almost got caught again. And sort of the back and forth that they had there, Miz had a lot more to do in the match, really playing off him being the hometown hero in this match. So I thought it was a really good wrestling match and a really good way to open the show proper. And then, of course, all the storyline aspect that happened afterwards to where Miz ultimately being pinned and not succeeding, and, you know, and once you knew the camera was lingering, you knew something was going to happen. But I'll give credit to WWE. I honestly actually did not expect Shane to be turning heel. I more expected Miz to turn heel because, again, he's more of the natural heel, but they're giving him a babyface run, and, you know, I'm really enjoying it. I think he's been great on the mic. Of course, mind you, Miz has been absolutely amazing on the mic and in his promos for the past 2.5 years at this point. So that's really no surprise. But again, so the twist, I did not really expect Shane to turn heel, so it was a surprise to me. And, you know, you got to give WWE props for that, for being able to sucker me into the story so much that I didn't see it coming. So props to that. And then, of course, the beatdown of Miz and of his father was dastardly, and it was dastardly in all the right heelish ways that it needed to be. And mind you, their build-up in the weeks following this has been absolutely excellent as far as I'm concerned. I'm really excited to see this Falls Count Anywhere match. As long as it actually goes somewhere outside of the ring, I will be happy. I want to see them go in the backstage area. I want us to see an old school Attitude Era sort of hardcore match where they can be pinned anywhere. I mean, mind you, if they somehow like get into a car and leave the arena and somehow end up in, okay, I don't think it's there anymore, but somehow later on the show we catch up with them and they end up in like a ball pit at some fun land, I will lose my ish, okay? That's still my favorite hardcore match because I actually bid at that place. It's when it was open, it was like a 3-story tall entertainment center with ball pits and bowling alleys and everything. I actually got to go to it one time, several times in fact. So that's still my favorite 24/7 hardcore match that I ever saw from that era. So I will have fun if they make throwbacks to that. I really do hope now that I'm thinking of it. But so overall, good match. Love the story that they told after the match with the beatdown. Really surprised me with Shane's heel turn, and I thought a really good way to open the show. Let's get into match 2. Second match for the WWE Smackdown Women's Championship. The Empress of Tomorrow, Asuka, versus God's greatest gift, Mandy Rose. Let's move on to the second match, and this is, to me, was the worst match of the night. I mean, there were other matches that didn't have really much wrestling-wise to it, much less than this. I'm looking at you, Charlotte, and Becky, but because of the real storyline implications, that's really a word right there, folks. Implications. Implications, excuse me. Botchamatis strikes again. Ding! Which, by the way, to Matthew, I would love to see, make that a thing. Botchamania, the podcast edition. And have all botches for, like, everybody's podcast videos. That would be interesting to see. But yeah, Asuka versus Mandy Rose, and this wasn't a good match. It really didn't have the energy, and part of it is Asuka's really good, but Mandy isn't really there yet. She's got great charisma, and I think she has a good character, but her talent in the ring is lacking behind her, I think, development where she is, at least charisma-wise. And I think she's still a little bit green and still really growing as a wrestler. And she doesn't have certain timing aspects there. I mean, mind you, she's much better as she is, and I see her improving all the time, so I don't want to take that away from her, but she just isn't there. And some timing issues happened throughout the match that sort of took some of the energy away. And the finish with her tripping on the apron just didn't look good at all, and I think all of it ultimately led to why they ultimately made the decision, I'll be last minute, to take the title off Asuka and put it on Charlotte. Because I think when you look at it, and I know this has been a big thing of contention among many people, trust me, I know, because I was there live on Riftdown, getting yelled at by multiple people who claim they use racial slurs, not that I heard any, but, you know, by multiple people that I didn't know what I was talking about because I wasn't as upset as them. But I love you, Matty J. But, yeah, it's just a thing to where, you know, looking forward, I don't see what they would have done with Asuka. Like, Mandy Rose isn't there. I don't think Sonya Deville is there yet either as a match, or at least I think a match with her, she needs more building to make her a credible threat or to make her more of a babyface. And, I mean, if you play her babyface, because I know they would rather play with, not play, but, you know, again, they like to use her sexuality as part of her character, which, again, that's her choice. And it is part of who they like to portray her as when you look at sort of the, not puff pieces, but like anytime they're like anything sort of behind the scenes, there's always a talk about, you know, and kudos on them and her ability to be an openly gay wrestler. And mind you, I'm not saying that's the problem, but I'm saying I think they would rather have her be a babyface, and that would, I think, require them to have to make Asuka heel, and I don't think they could have done it with the little time that they had to make it mean something. And then the other thing would have been to have her face Naomi, which I don't think would have worked because it would have been face versus face, and that would require you to have to turn one of them heel by the end. And I think after seeing what happened ultimately, how they messed up with Nakamura last year, I think they're very hesitant to do face versus face. Or at least right now they are. And so, there just, to me, there really wasn't anything to give Asuka that would have meant anything and been meaningful. And I understand the frustration, and Asuka definitely deserves better. Asuka deserves to have a main event spot. I think this is the downside of deciding for the main event to be a triple threat, where Charlotte had to face, or adding Charlotte to the match, because again, you could have had Charlotte versus Asuka, the rematch at WrestleMania. I think it would have meant something. And while I don't disagree with adding her to the triple threat and think it'll be great, I did know that this sort of would be sort of a consequence of that, and it's really showing. And it's frustrating because we all love Asuka. We think she deserves better. But there's a whole different story there that I don't have time to get into. We'll save that for a different day. But, yeah, not really a good match. And unfortunately, I think ultimately it became one of the reasons why they decided to do what they did in taking the title off Asuka a couple weeks ago. So, not a good match, but let's go on to a match that is good. Let's move on to the third match. Third match, triple threat for the WWE Raw Tag Team Championship. The Revival versus Bobby Roode and Chad Gable versus Aleister Black and Ricochet. Moving on to the third match. Oh god, this is one of the best matches of the night by far. You know, we had the Revival versus Roode and Gable versus Ricochet and Aleister Black. These three teams just tore the house down. Just great triple threat tag team wrestling back and forth. And Aleister Black and Ricochet have added such a breath of fresh air to the main roster, and I think it was very smart of them, I was searching for the word there, to put him in the Raw Tag Team division, which has needed a real breath of fresh air. Because really, at that point, the only two teams were Rudy Gable and Revival, and honestly, the Raw Tag Team division has been my favorite thing to watch each week for the past couple months. And I say that honestly. But just a great match, one of the best spots of the night. And I know you've heard me talk about Ricochet, the dive that he does diagonally where he goes over the post, and I talked about like how more impressive it is on a main roster stage in this sort of arena setting, because the degree of difficulty is so much more higher because his landing area is so much more smaller than he had in like, you know, PGW or PWG, New Japan. Like, it's so much smaller. Or at least I believe it is, but I just think it has a degree of difficulty. Add to that the amazing where he's leaping over somebody. I believe he left over Scott Dawson, while, by the way, Chad Gable tags him in mid-flight. Just so impressive. The string of things that happened there, just that shows you wrestlers at the top of their game. And just the back and forth, and then I love that the Revival, I thought it was a big win for the Revival to get, and made them look really strong, because it wasn't some cheap trick win. It was a big win where they took advantage of a situation, hit the Shatter Machine. I thought they looked strong. And going out of that, I actually think the Revival has looked strong. I know a lot of people disagree with me on this. It's an unpopular opinion. Hey there, TWK. But I thought, I've enjoyed the way they've been booked. I think they've been booked as sort of that cocky team that is that damn good, but sometimes their cockiness gets the better of them. So they underestimate people, and that's when they lose, but they'll always lose on non-title matches is when it happens. When it's the main event and the title's on the line, you know, they break out all the stops, and that includes sort of smart tag team wrestling. Like you saw this past Monday, to where smartly Scott Dawson was under the ring. That's sort of classic Revival, because they've done that before, to where he holds the leg and prevents him from getting in to break the count, causing the count out. To which, and mind you, I know a lot of people, they got beat up by Black and Ricochet. Well, yeah, if you got screwed like that, you'd want to beat them up too, wouldn't you? To me, it's simple wrestling psychology. And so I've loved how they've been shown as this strong team, to where even though maybe like Ricochet and Aleister Black have more power and are more athletic and everything, they're still able to overcome them because they are a team. Which is why I'm really looking forward to their match versus Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder. I think this is going to be a sleeper match of WrestleMania. You heard me right. Ryder and Hawkins versus the Revival will be a sleeper match of WrestleMania. Even though it's on the pre-show, it will still be a sleeper match as far as I'm concerned. And I am tremendously looking forward to it. As long as they have a very good, entertaining match, I honestly don't care whether Revival wins, though I'd love to see them win a WrestleMania moment, or whether Hawkins and Zyder wins and that storyline gets a big payoff on the grandest stage. So I'm looking forward to it either way. And of course, Black and Aleister, Black and Ricochet, are going to be in the 4-way tag match for the Smackdown titles against the Usos, which I can't wait to see Ricochet versus the Usos. The Bar, and Nakamura and Rusev, and I always look forward to seeing Ricochet versus Nakamura. So I'm really enjoying that. So great tag match, one of the best matches of the night, had some great spots. And let's keep that momentum rolling with match number 4. Fourth match for the WWE United States Championship. Samoa Joe versus R-Truth versus Rey Mysterio Jr. versus Andreas Yen Almas. The momentum of good matches just kept rolling with, you know, the United States title match. again, all four of these wrestlers, just the fatal four-ways they've been having the past weeks when this was happening from that pay-per-view. So the four-way they had the Smackdown before, where Joe won the title, the four-way they would have the next Smackdown after the pay-per-view. Just, again, all four of these wrestlers at the top of their game, and they have such great chemistry with each other. In particular, Mysterio and Owens, they just tear it down. Joe looks like an absolute beast that just can't be stopped. Mr. Power Game, always bringing the power game. R-Truth is having a great resurgence. It's enjoyable to see, where he's funny but looks legit. I really enjoyed the match. Again, just a really good wrestling match in the middle of the card. And that's sort of the thing that was about this entire pay-per-view, to where, yeah, you had a lot of sort of attitudinal sort of story aspects of the pay-per-view, where really the matches were all about pushing a story that was going to be happening at WrestleMania. But at the same time, you had some really good wrestling matches. The tag match to open the card. The triple threat tag match that was the match before, and this match in particular, and a match we'll talk about in a little bit. You had some great wrestling matches on this card. So there was some great variety of different aspects of sports entertainment on this card, and this is one example of it. Just all four men, really good chemistry together. A very fun, entertaining match. The dive by Mysterio off the top rope, that was an amazing moment. And I love sort of the build up to the finish, to where, you think Rey Mysterio has it, and he goes for that frog splash, but last minute, Joe gets out of the way, and then just immediately rolls over him and locks in the clean clutch. That was such a smooth, beautiful thing. And there goes Mysterio to Night Land. And then going forward to WrestleMania, of course, then Mysterio would later get a victory over Joe. Him getting a victory gets him a U.S. title shot at WrestleMania. And as much as I'm looking forward to Mysterio being at WrestleMania just because he comes out with amazing entrances, I don't think it's going to happen. Of course, you're currently doing these he has an injured ankle. I think two things are going to happen. I think, one, he's not going to be able to compete, to which Joe will issue an open U.S. challenge that will be accepted by John Cena. And let's be honest, we all want to see Joe versus Cena. And for the U.S. title, the open challenge, just make it match of the night right there. Or they may do something unique, to where maybe he attacks Mysterio before the bell, causing him to have to bow out, to which Dominic's with him, and so Dominic decides to get he is a wrestler, and he has a match with Dominic. That may be something interesting, sort of father-son sort of teaching there. Those are sort of the two things I think that they may go with. I could be completely wrong with both of them, but we will see. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Great U.S. title match. But unfortunately, the momentum must stop. Not necessarily completely bad, because we move on to a match that was more story than good wrestling, but still good story. So let's move on to match number 5. Fifth match for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship. The Boston Hug Connection versus the Samoan Slaughterhouse. So moving on to the women's tag match, and again, the match itself was serviceable. Your enjoyment may vary. So I thought they did enough wrestling-wise to, again, you have these big heels, and Sasha and Bayley were able to ultimately outsmart them and get the victory. But really, the match wasn't. This was true, I think, of really at least 2 of the 3 female wrestling matches on the card. Asuka and Mandy was more about wrestling, and again, I went to why elements of that weren't good and didn't succeed in what that led to. But this and the other women's match really were more about story. So it was more about, ultimately Bayley and Sasha picking up the win, shocking Nia and Tamina, and of course them being heels, beating them up unmercifully and going too far. That, of course, leading to Beth Phoenix getting up, and that leading to the interaction to where they get physical with Beth, leading to Natalya to calm down, and you knowing that, again, okay, the Divas of Doom are back. And then, of course, all that being an integral part to the four-way women's tag title match that's going to happen at WrestleMania. The one last part being Sasha and Bayley losing on SmackDown to the Iconics so that they could be added to it. But again, just so much aspect of that story played at the end and afterwards of that match with the beatdown that Nia Jax and Tamina put on Sasha, Bayley, and Beth Phoenix, and ultimately Natalya after the match. And so, again, I thought it all told a good story of those dastardly heels. And, again, all of it going forward being very simple to the leading to the the tag match that we see at WrestleMania. And I'm really looking forward to the match because I think there's a lot of interesting stories to it. Of course, you have the Boston Hug Connection and their fan favorites, and you want to see them win. You want to see, the heels be pinned or be the ones who get pinned, whoever gets the victory, because you hate them. The Iconics, you should have the NXT crowd behind them because of where they've come from, and just they've always been a tag team, and people do want to see them win the belts. And then, of course, you have some legends that you want to see do well with both Natalya and Beth Phoenix, with, what Natalya's had to go through the past couple of months, also with what Beth Phoenix has meant to the company as being one of those very few ultra-powerful females that provided a different look to the Divas division, and you want to see her have, one more good sort of WrestleMania moment. So I'm really looking forward to the match overall. I think everybody there deserves to be it. Even Nia and Tamina, even though people hate them. But then again, I think that's what you're supposed to be, hating them. So, not really a good match wrestling-wise, just so-so. But the story aspect after the match really helped contribute to the build that these women were going to be having towards their WrestleMania match. And that, to me, is more important than it being a 5-star match. That was the element they needed to play. They did it wonderfully. And so, props on them for telling a good story. But something that had a good story and excellent wrestling directly followed that. Let's get to match number 6. 6th match for the WWE Championship. Daniel Bryan versus Kevin Owens versus Mustafa Ali. Whoo! I love this match. I love everything about it. You had Kevin Owens versus Daniel Bryan. Of course, earlier in the night, it had been announced that this would now be a triple threat. Everybody thought it'd be Kofi. Of course, that didn't turn out to be true. And who was the third participant? It would be Mustafa Ali, which I love everything about this because, again, it's Vince McMahon being a heel to the audience. At the same time, it's Mustafa Ali being given an opportunity that he had earned before getting concussed. And so, again, he's getting an opportunity to show his spot and show what he can do. And again, as somebody who's a huge fan of Mustafa Ali, who's become one over the past couple of years, again, I think he deserved it, and so it's good to see him be given that opportunity to perform. And the thing I really love about this match, because this was an absolutely fantastic match from start to finish. The thing is, they had to work through the fans not wanting it. And this is what was most impressive about all three wrestlers here. Is, again, for obvious reasons, and mind you, they were playing this story on purpose, mind you, the fans wanted Kofi. And their desire for Kofi drowned out everything at the beginning of the match. But as the match continued, and as they just stuck to it and kept pounding away on the match, they won the fans over. And they stopped cheering for Kofi. Mind you, they still wanted Kofi, but they stopped cheering for it and making the match all about that, and started to enjoy it and get into the match. And again, just major props to both all three wrestlers, Bryan, Owens, and Ali, for having such skill and ability to tell a great story that it ultimately, even though the fans didn't want to be drawn in, they ultimately draw the wrestlers in. It's a testament to their work ethic, and how good of wrestlers all three are. And mind you, as I said, this match was absolutely amazing. And Ali was spectacular with all his maneuvers. The 450, I believe, onto Bryan on the ring apron. Owens looked great. I love his new use of the stunner because it looks great. And I just love this new look to Owens. It's like he feels different, just faster in a way, and it's great. And it just added on to the great wrestling ability of Kevin Owens that, you already knew he had. And then Bryan just played an absolutely wonderful heel, and just the back and forth between all three wrestlers throughout the match, and then that finish, the Boonsaki knee to counter the attempted tornado DDT by Mustafa Ali, which if you've not seen his Mustafa Ali's tornado DDT, he'll jump onto the second turnbuckle back facing the wrestler he's going to hit it on, jumps, twists, catches the wrestler in the position, and then hits the tornado DDT. As he turns around to try to catch him, boom, hits him with the knee. Just, oh my God, I'm like, Bryan just killed Ali. It's like, that's a finisher, folks. And just, it was beautiful. And all the story elements that was used in the match to play towards the sort of Kofi Kingston, Daniel Bryan storyline, it all worked perfectly. And the audience, they wanted Kofi, they made their attention heard, so they were able to use that, but at the same time, they ultimately then got drawn into the match. Great job by everybody around. Wonderful moment to finish the match. One of the best matches of the night. And, something that wasn't a match of the night candidate, though, would be next. So, let's get into the final women's match of the night. Let's get into match number 7. 7th match. Special singles match. The Queen, Charlotte Flair, versus the Man, Becky Lynch. Okay, so there's really not much to talk wrestling-wise in this match of Charlotte and Becky. I mind you, there was a stipulation that, Becky had to win to get to WrestleMania. And mind you, it was there. I thought the way they smartly ended, really all this is about a story about building towards a triple threat. And wrestling-wise, I think something that's overlooked in this match is, I thought they did something very smart, which is they showed you how good Becky was. Because she was on one leg, and yet she was still able to fend off Charlotte, who's, let's be fair, one of the best women's wrestlers in the world, and was able to fend her off and was starting to come back and could have possibly won had Ronda Rousey not shown up. That being said, I thought it was very smart that, Ronda, she really wants to face Becky, so she attacked Becky to get Charlotte disqualified, so that Becky would be placed in the match. I thought that was very smart in WWE storyline-wise. I know a lot of people question ultimately what has come afterwards, and ultimately the decision for it to be a triple threat. But that being said, storyline-wise, I thought it was all the right things. Again, there wasn't much of a wrestling match there, but there were some storyline elements that, again, I think showed off Becky's character and how good of a wrestler she is, that even with one bad leg, she's still a formidable foe. So I liked they showed that. I thought it was smart to have Ronda get Charlotte disqualified so that she could, because she wants to face Becky Lynch. And overall, I've actually enjoyed Ronda's new heel character and that turn, and that just not giving a F. Mind you, I think everybody's excited because it's going to be the first women's match to main event WrestleMania. I say it that way because I've been hearing the first women's main event, as if there hadn't been a women's main event. There had been a women's main event, it's just not been the main event. I would consider any of the women's matches, in particular during the mid-2000s, with Trish Stratus to be main events. You know, I think of her versus, goddamn, I'm blanking on her name. Her versus Lita, and her versus Jazz. Those were women's main events. They just weren't the main event. That's besides the point, but if nothing else, I want to talk about that segment on last Monday night. Like, apparently the Washington, D.C. police were out, and they called in the Keystone Cops to take over for it, because, my God, when I saw them put Becky and Ronda in the same card, I'm like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? By the way, I don't know why I've been doing this today. I'm excited. It's WrestleMania season. But yeah, just that entire segment was balls to the wall. Make it have one of the best sort of funny single segments of the year. The D by Charlotte to Ronda, and she's still talking trash to people. God, I love everything about it. And so, it may not be the match we wanted, but you know what? I think all three women are going to have just a bomb-ass match, and I'm looking forward to it. And this match provided the important story elements of getting Charlotte disqualified and letting Becky win so that she could be added to the match. So, again, I agree with all the storyline aspects they did. There's not a lot of wrestling stuff to talk about. Other than, I like that they showed that Becky is a formidable foe, even on one leg, as I mentioned. I think that's the third time I mentioned it, by the way. But with that, let's get on to the final match of the night, the last match of the Shield. Final match, 6-man tag match. The Shield versus Baron Corbin, Drew McIntyre, and Bobby Lashley. In the final match tonight, we had the Shield versus Corbin, McIntyre, and Lashley. And you know, I thought this was a really good main event. Maybe mileage may vary, because it depends if you like the sort of Shield 6-man tags. Because this is, like, for that part, most Shield 6-man tags. There is a certain rhythm and flow to it. You know, start off strong with the Shield holding their yard, fending off the other team. At some, particularly when they're faces, mind you. You know, they were sort of a different flow when they were heels, and they just constantly dominated. In the middle, the faces would slowly build their way back, and you think, oh, they may beat them this time, only for the Shield to shut them down and get the victory. But this sort of formula that was really formulated during the rivalry that they had with Evolution back in... it was after WrestleMania 30. So, 2016, I believe? Could be wrong. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Sorry, doing math. But sort of that flow to it, and this was no different. But at the same time, when you have wrestlers who can do this type of match with great skill and so entertaining, and of course you have all the story elements following it with, you know, Roman Reigns coming back from battling leukemia, that Dean Ambrose is going to be leaving soon, and that basically is saying that, you know, this is the last time they'll be together. There was a lot of feel-good moments in this match, and it was just a fun match. And Corbin, McIntyre, and Lashley all, I think, are formidable foes to present against them. And so it did have that formula, but still, it was just a fun, entertaining match. And that whole build to the end to where, again, you feel like the heels are going to win, but then the Shield claws back. They take over, they dominate, and they just take each wrestler out one by one with Shield power bombs and just decimating them. And then, of course, the feel-good moment, as it's been for any time in the past couple months, to where Corbin's all alone, and you see the little pencil neck of a heel get just decimated. How could you not like that? Shield win, great emotional win, and sending the crowd home happy. So I thought it was a really good wrestling match, very entertaining. Told a good story. And if that is sort of the final match of the Shield ever being together, you know, it was a good way to send them off. So that is it for my thoughts on Fastlane 2019. Let's get to the finisher. Let's get into the final review. So welcome to final thoughts for Fastlane 2019. And as usual, let's start off with top 3 moments. Number 3, the 2 Shield power bombs. I think one was delivered to McIntyre through a table, and then you had the final one given to Corbin in the ring for the win. After I think a series of finishers, and for that to be, you know, how the Shield goes out, that was just, excuse the pun, glorious. At number 2, the dive by Ricochet over, I believe, Scott Dawson while Gable's tagging him. The degree of difficulty in that maneuver, as I said, with a small landing area. First of all, the maneuver is always glorious to see no matter where Ricochet does it. But again, just the added degree of difficulty and all the other moving parts of that moment just was amazing to me. But number 1, the finish of the WWE Championship match, because that's a finisher. That Boonsaki knee to counter the attempted tornado DDT of Ali. We talk about Night Night Land, that's going to Night Night Land. So that's my top 3 moments of the night, and sort of those 3 moments actually imitate my views on the top 3 matches of the night. At number 3, you had the 6-man tag main event, Shield versus Corbin, Lashley, and McIntyre. Very entertaining, very good Shield match, as those Shield matches always are, and I thought a really solid main event. At number 2, you had the triple threat match for the Raw Tag Team titles. All 3 teams, I thought, shown extremely well throughout the match. Many great moments, like I said, aforementioned dive, and just a very entertaining match and a great big win for the Revival. And of course, at number 1, because they had to battle through so much, because they had to re-earn the crowd who were pissed off at not being given Kofi, because they had to work through that and they pounded and they were able to win the crowd back. And mind you, all at the same time putting that fantastic triple threat match together. That triple threat for the WWE Championship between Owens, Ali, and Bryan. Absolutely fantastic. Best match of the night by far. And I don't know what more you could have asked for them to do in that match, because they did everything you could have asked for. They forward stories. They wrestled a beautiful, gorgeous match. That was just exciting and filled with so many moments that had you on the edge of your seat. I don't know if I'd make it a match of the year candidate, but it's definitely going to be one of the most underrated matches of the year, because I think many people are going to forget about it, and people should, because it was an important part of Kofi Mania as part of telling that story, and it was just an absolutely fantastic match. So overall, as I made mention, this had a very Attitude Era feel with all the different stories and how matches really didn't have a lot of wrestling to it, and they were more telling stories. I'm looking at you, the women's tag title match, and you, Becky versus Charlotte. But they also had a story being told after matches, looking at you, Smackdown tag team title match with Shane and Miz. But all in all, there was no horrible matches. Like, there were matches that just didn't have energy, and, you know, really I'm looking at you, Asuka versus Mandy Rose, and I hate to say that, but it wasn't a bad match. It didn't have the energy. It didn't have some of the timing issues. But for the most part, most of the matches on this card were really good, or at least the ones that didn't have disqualifications and work real quick. Again, looking at you women's matches. But despite having all this storytelling being implemented in there, you had so many actually, I think, very good to great matches. Both tag team title matches, WWE Championship, the 6-man tag at the end, the United States title match, just really good matches. I think a lot of people are going to overlook Fastlane, but Fastlane was a very solid pay-per-view that had good wrestling while also telling a solid story on the road to WrestleMania. It's not going to be the best pay-per-view of the year, but it's like the WWE Championship match. I think it's going to be an overlooked pay-per-view of the year. I give Fastlane 2019 a 4 out of 5. So that's it for this episode of CMG's Wrestling Reviews. I hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to like and subscribe. Of course, that means hitting that bell on the Absolution Network YouTube page. And of course, remember to check out all our stuff over at www.an.132productions.com. That's the Absolution Network's homepage, where of course you can see me and my stuff from my stuff, and of course the stuff of our beloved That Dude in the Straw Hat, Shin Tiger Girl. So until next time, where we review NXT TakeOver New York, I want you to remember one thing, and that is, I am the most glorious Jew that ever lived in your unchained Jewish champion. So just sit back and bask in my glory, bro.